honor. Yes, thank you. So this is a huge honor. So shout out Kevin. This is a award that gets nominated to people by the community. So Kevin has been very involved publishing things, kind of coming up with some groundbreaking ways to use Tableau, and then most importantly, really helping other people. I've been lucky enough to learn a lot from Kevin. I know a lot of other people, whether you know him in person or virtually, reached out to him on Twitter, LinkedIn. He's always willing to help. So thank you, Kevin, and congratulations. And then our second spotlight here is for Chira. So Chira was named as one of Tableau's next. I think I saw Chira already join the meeting.
Yeah, I did too.
So yes, so congratulations, Chira. This is a big honor. So this is for people who are newer in the Tableau community, but they kind of joined at a sprint. So they jumped in full force, really using the tool, publishing things, and really giving back to the community. So thank you so much, Chira, and congratulations as well. And then I want to highlight some events. So I'll talk about these two, and then Josh, I'll open it up to you to plug your user group as well. But the first event that I want to highlight is the Tableau conference. So this year it's in San Diego. Pretty exciting, if you ask me. The dates are April 29th through May 1st. So Tableau Conference is really just a great way to, one, attend a lot of sessions about, what is up and coming on the roadmap, how to use different features, as well as really just meeting different people in the community. You'll see a lot of names, online, and then it's kind of crazy when you actually get to meet some of the people in person and really form that connection. So that's a great event. And then we also have the Outlier conference. So this is the Data Viz Society conference. And this year, we're very excited to announce that it's in Chicago. So specifically on Northwestern's campus, it is June 12th through the 14th. And this is just Data Viz as a whole. So tool agnostic, best practices, covering a lot of different platforms. So that is a great opportunity as well. And then Josh, if you want to mention the dates for your upcoming event.
Yes. So hi, I'm Josh Wilson. I lead the marketing and market research Tableau user group. We have been the market research Tableau user group, and now we're marketing and market research. But on April 23rd, unrelated to marketing or market research, we have the Flurlage twins joining us to do their how to do cool stuff in Tableau. And given its proximity to the upcoming conference, we don't know for sure whether or not they'll be presenting, because I think that hasn't been announced yet. But my guess is there may be some new tips that they'll be sharing. So that will be on April 23rd. We don't have the event created yet, but if you follow our group, I just posted the link in the chat, then you will hear about that as soon as we get the event officially scheduled.
Awesome. Thank you, Josh.
Thank
And
you.
now these are my kind of house cleaning updates. So Kevin Wee, I can pass it over to you to introduce our first presenter.
Sure. Oh, I was going to ask you to keep the slides on.
Oh, here,
You
yeah, let me
mind?
share again really fast.
Yeah, it's just one slide after that.
It's like
Awesome.
I never stop sharing so fast.
Well, for today's event, the first speaker would be Andy. He will be talking about how to visualize time using different chart types. Of course, it's going to be a Tableau demonstration. Note that we have been recording the event. Am I right, Kevin? Yes, we have been recording events, so feel free to just watch this, pay attention to what he's doing instead of trying to follow along. You could do so later with the video recording, which we will send it to you after the event. Now let's talk more about Andy. Andy is a data visualization expert. He's one of the members of the Tableau Visionary Hall of Fame, which is the ultimate celebrations of the people that's been leading the data visualization communities. Over the 20 years, Andy has helped thousands of people developing their careers in data by sharing tips and tricks on his YouTube channel, blog, and now his LinkedIn profile. His Tableau public profile is a demonstration of his work. Today, he has over 1.3 thousand of unique visualizations with over 12 million views on the profile. He's the founder of Next Level Tableau with over 130 on-demand videos and over 150 hours of training videos. And it's the most comprehensive on-demand and live training membership available on the internet. So with that, I'd like to welcome Andy. I'd like you to take away and start sharing your screen.
Great. Thank you very much for the very nice introduction. I know I didn't write that for you, so somebody must have given it to you.
Kevin, we is an
so
overachiever in all dimensions. Yes.
So like Kevin said, I'm going to be sharing some things in Tableau. Don't worry about trying to follow along. I'm probably going to go too quick anyway. I think I've got about 20 minutes. Is that right? Yeah. And there's a couple shout outs to Kevin in here because I've learned some of his tricks lately. So I'm gonna show you how Kevin does some of his stuff. So hopefully I don't butcher it too badly, because his work is way more sophisticated than mine. But I thought I'd kind of start simple, and then I'm going to show you a couple like fancy graphs that I thought are just kind of fun to build. Assume you can see my screen okay? Good to go? Right. All right. And I'll make sure that that you get this workbook when I'm done, and also the data set that I'm using, because we're going to be looking at historical rainfall data from Heathrow Airport in London, because the weather is terrible in the UK, pretty much. So I tried to get data from where Eva and I live, because it's way worse. We're in the very northern part of England, but it was too spotty to really give us a good visualization. So so I went with Heathrow Airport. So let me go ahead and connect to that data set. Now, if I can find it, would be really helpful. Okay, there we go. And it's a very simple data set. Right. Okay. So we have it comes in as year and month as separate columns, and then we have temperature max and min, and the mean temperature, which is just the two of them added together divided by 2. And then the AF days, that's the number of days with frost, which interesting metric, I guess. And then the rain, this is the one that we're most interested in, is the rain in millimeters. And then the sun hours, which I don't believe is right, because it says we have way more sun than we actually do. Then it says there's way more sun than there are days or hours in the day. So don't think that's quite possible, especially considering how dark it gets here in the winter. So the first thing I like to do when I go into when I create my connection is I just rename it. I hate how an Excel sheet Tableau puts the sheet number around it, or the sheet name around it. And then we have these two fields that are year and month separate, but I want to combine those into a date field so that we can work with a date instead of two separate fields. So I'm going to just go ahead and create the calculation right here. I could have gone into the worksheet itself and built the calculations, but we might as well do some of the data prep here as well. So I'm going to create a calculated field. And of course, it switches over to the other window naturally. And I'm just going to call this month. And I'm going to use the make date function. So we can pass integers to this. So our years are integers and our months are. So I'm just going to pick the year field and the month field, but I have to specify a day as well. I'm just going to put the first of the month. So (1). And now we have our date field, and we don't really need to use the year and the month anymore. So super simple. All right. Once I have that, the first thing I'm going to do from here is I'm going to go ahead and set up some of my defaults in here. For example, we see that the year and the month fields, Tableau brought both of those in as measures because it read them in as numbers. It just sees Y's and M's. It doesn't understand that those mean year and month. If they were actually named year and month, Tableau would have made them dimensions by default. But I'm just going to drag those up as dimensions just to have them there. I'm not going to use them probably, but just so we have them. And then for all of the fields that we have here, I'm going to actually change the default aggregation for all of those, because I may look at the data at a yearly level, or I may look at it at a monthly level. So if I look at it yearly, I want to take the average of the months. So I'm just going to select all of these fields and then right click and do default properties, aggregation, and then average. So just that way, when I drag them in, by default, they're an average. So let's start playing around with some of the data then. If I just double click on my month field, Tableau automatically puts month fields in the columns, right? I think if I do the year, Tableau puts it in the rows, right? So a regular dimension, Tableau will start in the rows if it's the first field you double click on. But if it's a date field, Tableau will put it in the columns. Okay, and if we just want to look at, let's say we'll look at rainfall, the average rainfall across the years, we get something like that. But what I don't like is this has this long scroll bar across the bottom. That's because we have a discrete year. So discrete meaning blue. And if you're unsure what blue and green mean, there's a video on my YouTube channel. And I also put something on LinkedIn the other day, a little carousel that explains what blue and green mean, and also discrete and continuous. And you'll see down the bottom, hopefully you can see it when I highlight, but down here at the very bottom at the status bar, you'll see we have 77 columns. That's because there's 77 years in the data set. So Tableau drew a column for each year. Okay, it split the view up in the 77 unique columns. But I don't want it to be individual columns. I want it to be an axis. So I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to change it to this month option here. If I look at this list of dates, this first, of course that didn't work, did it? If this first section of dates here, these are your discrete dates or your date parts. So these are literally just the part of the date. And then these are your continuous dates. So I'm going to do continuous years. It's still the same number of marks in the view. So down on the bottom left again, I can see I still have 77 marks, but now I only have one column, which is much better, right? And then it also makes it fit in the view. So this is just a really simple visualization of rain over time, nothing particularly interesting. It's probably some sort of seasonality, or no, this is yearly, so it can't really be seasonality. But let's I'm going to duplicate that sheet, but let's look at maybe the temperature, global warming and all. So let's drag the mean temperature onto the rows, and I'm going to drop it on top of the other field. And we have a dip here in 2024 because it's only been the winter so far. So that makes sense. The average temperature has been 7.3 degrees Celsius. Yeah, but you can see it looks like it's on kind of a gradual incline there. Right. And it's funny. I did a marathon a couple weekends ago that goes up the northeastern coast of the UK, and it's very cold, the North Sea. And there were dolphins swimming, which is really, really scary because they only swim in warm water. So and that water is usually ice cold. So anyway. Okay, so we've got the temperature mean there. I'm going to go ahead and just exclude 2024. And this is a case where I'll probably just will use this year field just because it's a bit easier. And I'm going to go all the way down to 2024 and I'm going to exclude it. And I do exclude just, I don't know, less clicks. Click on OK. And there we go. So now we can see the pattern a bit better. If I duplicate this sheet, then I can now put on a range for my minimum and my maximum as well. And I'm going to do that by creating a combined axis. I'm going to drag the maximum on top of the mean axis. And you see I get two green rulers. That's going to create a combined axis view. In other words, it's going to put more than one measure on the same axis. The good thing about that is they're automatically synchronized, right? Pretty nice. And then I'm going to put the minimum onto the measure value shelf. And now we've got that nice little range in our data set, right? And if we want, we could color code these. Let's maybe make the ones on the outside, maybe grays, and maybe we'll make this one blue, something like that. So now we can see kind of a nice little range there. We could also do, well, it'll get into too many complicated calculations, so maybe I'll skip that. I just get these ideas as I'm doing these things. But one of the things I talked about was seasonality. Is there any seasonality in the data set? So I'm going to create a new sheet, and this time I'm going to drag my month field to the columns, and it defaults to year. That's the first level of the date hierarchy. I'm going to split that out to quarters and then again to months. All right, so I'm going to get rid of the quarter field now. So I'm looking at year and month, and I'll put my mean temperature onto the rows. And it looks kind of weird, but I want to create what's called a cycle plot, and these are super useful for looking at seasonality in data sets. So right now we're looking at the data, the months within a year. What we want to do is we want to flip that around. We want to look at the years within a month. So I can compare all of the Januaries for all of the years within January, or all of the Januaries next to each other. That's what I mean to say. But it doesn't fit the view very nicely. So I'm going to right click on my year field and I'm going to make that continuous, right? Because that just switches it to an axis. And we get something like this, like we would expect, you know, a bit of seasonality. And then one of the things that I like to do with a cycle plot is I'll drag an average line on for my for each pane. So for each month, for the average temperature, right? So we get something like that. Let's go ahead and format that. I thought it moved it to another window. So I'm gonna get rid of the label. I'll leave the tooltip on, doesn't matter. I'm just gonna increase this and make it nice and dark and untick the recalculate. Okay, so now we can see that line a bit better. Maybe I'll make the other lines a bit thinner because they're so busy, right? Something like that. So now we can see the seasonality in the data set. So the temperature is warmest in the summer, which makes sense. And it doesn't get very warm here. That's basically the lesson there. It rarely gets above. So the highest average temperature for any month was 22 degrees Celsius in July of 2006, which is about, what's that? 20 is around 70. So it's like mid 70s, something like that, which is quite nice in the summer, actually, because it's light out till 11 o'clock at night. So, so that's quite pleasant. The temperature really doesn't change throughout the day. Up here where I am, if it's 42 Fahrenheit in the morning, it's 42 in the afternoon as well. Just doesn't change. Anyway, I don't know why I'm just talking like that.
No. I like all the Chicago people are not in their head. Yeah, we went to winter coats to work this morning. We're gonna go home in t-shirts. So
yeah. Yeah, complete opposite here. The temperature does not change at all. So what you get in the morning is what you have in the evening. So this is called a cycle plot. Now there's lots and lots of different visualizations you can build with time series, and I do have a workbook out on Tableau Public that is 60 ways to visualize time that I would recommend you download and have a look at. And a couple of the other visualizations. So because we have the min and the max, it might be useful to look at maybe some sort of distributions in the data. So I'm going to grab my, let's see, I'll grab my month field here, and I'm going to change this to month, just discrete months. And I'm going to put the year field onto detail, right? So now I get basically a block for each year. And I want to bring on here, let's see, let's do the mean temperature. And Tableau automatically gave us a line chart because it thinks it's over time, so it should connect them. But I don't want to do that. So I'm going to just make each of these, let's make them all like Gantt bars, for example. And now this kind of looks like what's called a strip plot, right? And maybe it'll look better if I flip it around. I got to get the stupid zoom window out of the way first. Where is the hide floated? There we go. Okay. There's a little, this is one of my favorite buttons up here. Is a little swap button. So I can click on that and the zoom screen will come back in the way. Come on. Oh, great. What is going on now? Excellent. My screen is now stuck. So give me 1 second.
no worries.
I can't get to the Zoom screen. Can one of you take sharing from me for a second, and then I'll take it back?
Sure. Let's see.
Yeah, I can share real fast.
Go for it.
I'm like,
No one look, this is the next slide. Here. Okay.
oh, my whole screen is frozen now. Oh, great. I can't get my Zoom out of the way. All right, give me 1 second. Let me just quit that. Okay.
While we're waiting for Andy to resolve it,
Okay, there we go.
I have just put Andy's 60 unique ways to visualize times, the video and the viz in the chat.
Okay, thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin.
Okay, I should be back. I should be back in business now. I had to turn off my little drawing tool thing.
No
Anyway,
worries.
so I was saying
we should have
I
had a
could-
commercial or something and
yeah, yeah.
money on the side.
So I could flip it around like that. you know, and maybe look at the data like that, right? That might be one way to do it. I could also, maybe I make these circles instead, but then I get like tons of overlapping circles, which don't look very good. So I'll switch those just to be circles. And then I'm going to shrink them down in size, but I want to jitter them. I want to spread them out a bit. So I'm going to double click in my columns and I'm going to type in here the average of random. Random is a hidden function in Tableau. And I'm going to edit my ranges for my random. So if you do the average of random, it always goes between 0 and 1. So let's say I wanted to go from minus 0.5 to 1.5. So I'm trying to bring them a bit closer together. So I can now hide that header, do a bit of formatting and clean up the view. Right, something like that. So now we can see the spread a bit better. And now if we put our average line on there, it'll look even better. So if we do our average for the pane for the mean, there we go. So I think that looks even better than the line chart that we had before. Okay, so this is again kind of like a cycle plot and a dot plot combination. Okay, what else can we do? So I'm going to right click and drag the month field to the rows and choose discrete months. And I want to compare the min, the max, and the median. So I'm just going to grab all of those. Actually, I'll just grab one of them and drag it onto the columns. And then I'm going to create that combined axis view again. So we got all three fields here. Looks a bit wonky. I'm going to change this to, I'm going to make these circles instead. And I'm going to now connect them. So I'm going to duplicate my measure values. If I hold the right key down. Make this a line. Again, that looks kind of weird. So I'm going to move my measured names to the path shelf. And then let's make it a dual axis and synchronize and move these to the front, right? So we get something like that. So it's showing the min, the max, and the median. Now, I probably should have not done that with the colors. So I'll make the minimum, maybe I'll make the max red for hot, right? Maybe I'll make the minimum yellow. Okay, so we get something like that. So this is a nice way to kind of show the range of the data. Another thing you could do with that, though, is I'm going to duplicate that sheet, and I'll go ahead and hide the header. You could, I don't know what this chart is called. I call it a peas in a pod because it looks like a pea pod. I'm going to just go to my line here, and I'm just going to make it bigger so it surrounds the circles. So go back to my circles here. Maybe I'll make these a bit smaller this time, put a border on them. Right, so you get something like that. Maybe I'll make this gray. So it's actually a line, but it looks like, you know, you've kind of lassoed them or something like that. Is it useful? Maybe not, but it looks kind of neat. But there's a couple other charts I wanted to show you. One is I want to show you how Kevin builds a bee swarm chart, if that's okay. Has anybody seen one of those before? I'm not gonna tell you what the calculations do because it'll take me like half an hour to explain the calculations. Basically, if you know how to do odds and evens, then you're pretty good there. So let me show you what it actually looks like, and then I'll show you what we're going to build. So if I drag this over, so we're going to build something like that. All right. So we're just looking at the number of months. We're looking at rainfall in this case, not temperature. Okay. So. And I'm going to cheat and copy some of the calculations. So hopefully you're okay with me doing a bit of cheating here. It speeds up the process. But I really, really like that. When I saw this on Kevin's Tableau Public profile the other day, I was like, I need to learn how to do that. And the calculation he wrote is like super easy to understand. So thank you for that, Kevin. Another reason to use Tableau Public as a community resource. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I need to create some bins on my rainfall. So let me go ahead and I'll create bins. And why don't I set it to like, I don't know, I'll just default it to something. It doesn't really matter. And I'm going to put that in the columns and make it continuous. All right, and then we're going to put the month field onto detail. And I want to look at every individual month. And let me make these circles. So now they're all just kind of piled on top of each other right now. Now, one thing we could do is we could start by making it just a unit chart. And I could do that by just double clicking in the rows and typing in the index function, which is just a counting function. And if I set that to compute using the month, now we see a nice, almost looks like a bar chart, right? It's just a way to look at the distributions. Really cool looking, I think. I would probably actually make the rainfall discrete in this case. I think it'll probably end up, no, it has to be continuous. I think it ends up looking terrible otherwise. And now I've got the, you know, when Tableau turns into that like black and white circle thing on it looks like poison, like the poison symbol, you know, so don't do that. Okay, so anyway, so that's a unit chart, but let me go ahead and duplicate that. So that one I think that one's pretty straightforward to build. And when I drag that table calculation over to the left, it saves it for me. So I'm just going to call it index. I didn't actually mean to do that, but since I did, I'll show you. And then what we need to do now is we need to count the number of months that are in each of those bins, right? So in other words, here we've got, you know, 14 months are in this first bin here. So I'm just going to copy this calculation. And let me create a new calculated field. I'll call it months in bin. And just paste that in. Let's see. And then I need to use that inside of the calculation that spreads the data out. So basically what the calculation does is it says, if there's one mark, stick it in the middle, right? Stick it in the middle. If there's two, spread those out, but neither of them is in the middle. They're just apart from each other. If there's three, one is in the middle, and then stack one above and one below, and then so on. So if you understand how to calculate evens and odds, it's relatively simple. So you just got to think through the logic of how that works. So let me show you that calculation. And I put notes in here. So when you get this workbook, you can understand what it all means. I had to write it down myself so that I knew what it meant. And what I do is I save these calculations into a notes file on my computer so I don't have to remember them anymore. I can just copy and paste them into wherever I need them. So I'll call this my spreader. And it says months per bin here. I think it's because I renamed it. So I just need to drag these on top here and hit OK. And if I put spreader now in place of index and then tell it to compute using month, there we go. So we've got our nice little bee swarm chart. And the beauty of this now is I can edit this. These bins, right? So I'm going to change it from 5. I'm going to actually make it run off of a parameter instead, because then I can test it a lot quicker. And the good thing about creating a parameter from here is Tableau already defaults the correct parameter type for you. So I'll just call this my bin parameter, or maybe I'll call it my bin adjuster, since I'm adjusting the bins. All right, and I always get rid of all of those so I can just type anything I want in there. And OK, and OK. So now if I show that parameter, so if I type in 10, it doesn't really look very good. If I type in maybe, I don't know, 5, back to where we were, that looks OK. Do 2, that looks OK, right? So you get these really cool looking views. And I tend to play around with them until I get one that I think looks cool and then I leave it like that. I don't know if there's supposed to be some kind of logic to it. So maybe every 2.5 degrees, that's probably a good compromise. But I like this because this is a combination of a distribution and a time series in the same view. So it's pretty cool. So now we can see what, like, there was an outlier here where there was 172 millimeters of rain in October of 1987. They're pretty terrible. If I want to then maybe highlight a particular year, I could drag my year field into the detail. And it breaks my calculation. That's OK. I just need to go back up to my spreader, edit my table calc. Oh, wrong screen. Here we go. And I need to go ahead and check the year option as well. But now that that's in the view, I can show the highlighter. And I could say, OK, well, show me what 2023 looks like, right? So these are the months. This is what the rainfall looked like in 2023. Now, just because it's on the outside doesn't mean that it's an outlier. That's just the sorting that's in there. So really, the spread is left to right, not top to bottom. If you want to look at it the other way, you can always flip it around, look at it like that. Kind of like a violin chart here would be similar to that. All right. Do you want me to stop there, or do you want me to show you one more thing?
I say go one more thing.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So
the back end of this is just like, networking, like a little bit hanging out. So I think more to talk
Oh,
about.
okay.
It's good.
Okay, great. So the last one I was going to show you is something like this. So this is called a starburst chart, or I think it's sunburst, or I don't know. I don't know what it's called. But I think it looks pretty neat, right? So this is looking, it's basically, you kind of read it like a clock. So we've got the average rainfall in 1948, and it goes around until we get to the most recent data point. So I'm not going to show you how to write all the calculations. I'm literally going to just copy and paste them in. But the most important thing here is the data preparation. So what we need to do now, I'm just going to go to a new sheet, and I need to add a new data source. I'm going to pick my rainfall data source again, but in order to draw the lines, it's the same data point at the start and the end of the line. So I need the same data in there twice. So I'm going to just drag sheet 2 on top of it again until I get this little union option. Okay, and I'll call this Heathrow rainfall starburst. All right. And I think that's really all we need there. So that's good. All right. So now I'm going to, again, I could move my year and my month up. I'll go over here and copy my my month calculation and just paste it here. And then I'm going to go over here and copy all of these calculations. And I do have a video for this as well to show you how to calculate this. I think it's with Superstore though. All right, so let me just copy those and paste. And I numbered them all as well, so it's easy for you to follow along with the video. So there's a couple key things here. This first one is, what field am I working with? So we're looking at the millimeters of rain. And we then, what are the other ones we need to look at? That's pretty much it. Everything else is just a matter of, these are all just math things that help you draw the pictures going the right direction. And I'm going to show all 3 of these parameters because we can adjust these to adjust the look of the starburst. What did I do? I hit edit instead of show. There we go. Okay. And I'll just set this to maybe like, I don't know, 10, or I'll just set it to 0. I'll default them all to 0 to start so we can see what it looks like. So we have these 2 fields, radial X, which I'm going to put in the columns, and radial Y in the rows. And then I need to put my, I need to change my mark type to a line and put my table name. So table name is basically, so I put the same, I did the union with the same table twice. One of them is named whatever the tab name, I think it was sheet 2. And the other one is called sheet 2.1 because it's the same sheet, but a second copy of it. So I'm going to put that onto path. And it doesn't really look, we just got some kind of weird little dot in the middle now. And I want to take my year field, and I'm going to drag that onto my detail shelf. And you should see, let's make that continuous. It shouldn't matter if it's continuous actually. So I did something wrong. Oh, now I need to just change my table calculations. So this is going to compute using every year. So compute using year, and did I do it wrong? Compute using, no, I did it right. Oh, it's because it's because all my parameters are set to 0 on the right-hand side. All right, so let's say we want the outer, let's just set this to maybe 10. I'm just guessing at the numbers now, so we can see it starting to come together. And I say it, and then the inner is basically how big of a hole do I want to punch in the center? So if I put like 8, you're going to see it goes way out. If I do, maybe I'll do 5 and have it go like halfway. Now, what this adjuster does is it kind of rotates these around in a clock. And so what I have to do is I'm going to go ahead and put the years on the label just so I can find where 1948 is. That's my first date. So it's over here. So I'm just going to click on that. I'm going to eventually take the labels back off, but I want that to be at the top, right at the very top. So I play around with these numbers, and I usually go the wrong direction. So I'll just type 10 and see where it goes. All right, so it went the wrong way. So I'll do maybe minus 20. Okay, that went a bit too far. Maybe minus 15. Okay, too far the other way. Let's try 18. So that's pretty close, not quite exactly. So that's why I leave the grid lines on for now. So let's make that like 18.25. Okay, so that looks perfect now. So now 1948 is at the start. So let's turn the labels off there. Oh, no, I put that in the wrong place. Let's just put that on detail. There we go. And you could, if you wanted to, you could like click on that mark. And if I do mark label always show, it's going to start with the temperature on there because that's the default metric. But I could put the year field on label. And then if I untick show all, let's see. And now I click on it and I do mark label always show, it's going to show me the year, right? So then we know the kind of starting point, and maybe I'll label the end as well, right? The start and the ends. So it gives us a bit of context on what the range looks like. So this is the average rainfall for by year, or sorry, by year. This would actually be the average monthly rainfall per year because there's 12 months in each of these, right? So I think that looks pretty cool. It looks even neater. We can format it and clean it up and get rid of all the grid lines. I'll do all of that before I send it over. But actually, I'll just put it up on my Tableau Public. And then if I duplicate this sheet, and let's say instead of using years, I want to use my monthly level. So I'm going to right click and drag my month field on top of that one. And I'll do month continuous. And let me go ahead and get rid of the labels. And this broke. That's okay. Because before it was using the year field to compute. Now we want it to compute using the month. Okay, and we get something like that. So that looks kind of neat. So let me change the size, and then maybe we'll put the rainfall onto color. And let me bring the inner in a bit. Oh, so the problem now is when I change the parameter in this view, it changes it in the other one as well. But that's okay. So now we get something like that. Looks kind of artsy. So maybe we'll filter. Let me convert this to continuous, show the filter, and then I can maybe just adjust this over, perhaps, something like that. And you can see it gradually switches around. Now you have to constantly move this starting point, which is a bit of a pain. So yeah. Okay, I think that's enough talking.
Yeah. No, huge thank you. Yeah, I think I was able to keep up with the walkthroughs the other one. This one I definitely have to go back.
Yeah, that's okay. I went fast on
I started
purpose
getting
'cause I know people
mesmerized
can
by it. Yeah, Kevin, we also started seeing.
yeah, I think it looks pretty. I think it looks pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, looks really cool.
So this one in particular. So yeah, so I would probably go on here and maybe put the rain on the color or something. Yeah.
Yeah. But you have seen that, especially with like global temperatures, right? If you put the years, right, where you see like it really splays out as it's coming up.
Yeah. We had a Make Over
like
Monday data set for that a long time ago, and it starts to spin out because as the
Yeah. All right. Excellent.
Great. Are there any questions?
Yeah, go for it.
If you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat. I think Logan's asking what was this viz trying to show?
Well, it's supposed to be showing you rainfall across time, but you can't understand it. So I wouldn't actually present this to anybody. I just thought it looked cool.
Yeah. But you could see it for like the outlier years, right? When were the years with like some flooding?
Yeah, you can see the spikes.
You can see some droughts in there, right? I actually
so like
1948 looks like it might have been the worst year.
Yeah, so the first 2 months of 2024, we've averaged 151 centimeters. So what's that? That's 59 inches of rain per month. Not great.
You mentioned the random function was almost like a hidden function. Is that something you just stumbled across working with other?
I learned it from, I think, Jeff Schaefer. Gosh, probably about 10 years ago.
Okay.
It doesn't work with all data sets, though. It only works with, like, for example, if you're connected to like a SQL server, that function, because the functions are dependent on what's available in the SQL server. So it works with like CSVs.
Yeah.
I mean, you could kind of serve, where did I do that? I think this one here, right? So
Yeah.
you could do it with the index function instead. So if I put index there, and then we could tell this to do something like that.
Mm.
So you just
Gotcha.
click them all, and then what I would do though is in the on the axis, I would make them independent, and then probably uncheck include 0.
Okay.
So something like that. So you can get pretty close. The good thing
Yeah.
about the index is they don't move.
Mhm.
Where with a random, as soon as I
Every time.
filter it, they reshift.
Yeah,
It recomputes the random.
That's a good call out. Yeah, I'd rather have the index where they don't move.
Yeah.
But by getting the separation, right, you can see the level of detail visually. It's yeah, it's a good effect. All right.
Okay.
Any other?
So Lewis says it
Oh.
makes him want to sign up for next level time. You should. Oh, is that is that Fred from that might be Fred from it is Fred from from Next Level Tableau. So Fred, see, this is very typical of Fred. He comes to all the live classes that we do. We do 3 of them a week, 3 1-hour sessions a week plus office hours. And he always lurks in the background. And I'm always like, I bet Fred is there. And I look at the participant list and he's always there.
Yeah.
So yeah. It's great to see you, Fred. But yeah, ask your company to pay, Lewis. Reach out to me, and we can get you set up there. It's great. It's a lot of fun. Anything else? I think that's
Other questions? Kevin, anything in the chat? Looks like Kevin's sort of catching up on, like, yeah, where's your social media? Where's some of your contact information? So thank you, Kevin.
that's some really quick Googling. That's excellent work.
Yeah.
It's like I already watched your stuff multiple times and I know exactly where to find them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. Okay. Well, I am going to get some sleep. It's 11:15.
Please do. Yes, please do. Thank you for staying up late. And yeah, thank you for joining us. This was wonderful.
Great. All right. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, those were some awesome tips. And I will introduce our next presenter. Let me share my screen. Get it full screen. Okay, awesome. So I'm excited to introduce Kevin Ford. Kevin is a business intelligence senior manager. He has over 9 years of data viz experience and over 20 years of BI experience, mainly in financial services. So this is an area Kevin is very passionate about. I've been lucky enough to have Kevin as a mentor. I know a lot of people on this call have. Kevin is very knowledgeable, but he's also very generous with his knowledge. So he's a great person to reach out to, and he's also very passionate about the Du Bois Challenge. I've been lucky enough to hear Kevin talk about this a few times. The year that I did it, you know, Kevin is the one that gave me the information about it. So with that, Kevin, I will give you the floor.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me share my screen so I get, I'll do full screen just so we can see it. All right, and everyone can see the slides. How about go full screen, please?
Yes, we can see it.
Oh yeah, it's a Microsoft thing. 1 second. As soon as the Zoom slider backs up, I'll fix that again. Come on, Zoom. Just so you know, the screen in our room looks perfect. Is there a way I could just do it from the toggle?
I think there's a way for you to toggle between main.
Yeah, or get the Zoom slider to stop sliding out.
Or you can just turn off the presenter mode.
Oh wait, I got it. There we go. Cool. All right. Yeah, thank you for the intro. Actually, I appreciate especially the comment about the passion for it. The Du Bois Challenge. I'll tell a little bit about, you know, like how I got into it as we get into the slides. But this is the 2 years ago, I was an observer. Last year, I decided to actually, right, ask some of the leadership team if it was okay if I sort of retold it, and they were delighted to get the word out. Really wanted to do it again, and you know, be a consumer. The biggest mistake I always make I have never made one of the visualizations. It's a little bit of my own imposter syndrome, as much as Ashley gave me a wonderful introduction. I manage the people who make data visualization at Discover, and then I'm always fishing for a little bit of free time to do it myself. We are in week 5, and I'll get into those details as we get there. Week 5 is a stacked bar chart. And so since somebody said, like, when's the next happy hour? You are all my accountability buddy. If I do not have the stacked bar chart from week 5 on Tableau Public by the time Anthony Stark says what the new one is for week 6, I'm buying the first round of drinks. So that's my way of kicking myself in the butt and getting this going. So let's talk about, like, so where did, how did I learn about this? Where is this information coming from? For me, right, this is the crew that was that first year for me. I think it was the 2021. I think it might have even been like, it was like a Tableau and DataViz society. Jason Forrest told the history side of it. Anthony Starks introduced the Du Bois challenge for that particular year. And as you'll see, Anthony even hosts the actual details on his GitHub. And so it, sort of like blown away by the presentation, blown away by the content and people participating and putting their own spin with their own tool on there. And Alan and I have become friends, as he was at the time looking to be a professor. So I think he's now he's at New York University, maybe in New York. For this year, right, this crew that's gotten together, I think Secu was actually in the original year, and I just didn't realize it. And it was just the nature of who I met and who I interacted with. But coming off of this year's data and diversity presentation, which was about a month ago, this is this year's leadership crew. Right, so Alan's still there, Anthony Starks, hopefully still on the phone. Like I said, Secu, I didn't realize went all the way back with Alan. I'll highlight Chimdi a little bit later, and then my fast fact with Rashid. Someone in Discover got into the Battle of the Banks data viz competition, and that's how we met Rashid. Rashid destroyed us and got first place. So yeah, it's some old friends and definitely some heavy hitters, both in the Tableau data viz community, but also in the broader data visualization society community. To go along with that, right? So like I said, I won't do it justice, right? The full 1 hour of this leadership crew doing this year's the history of Du Bois, the Du Bois challenge, right? They got a full 1 hour this year. They even did like a panel of what has it meant to them over the years. I found that enriching as I went through that whole thing. So it's already on YouTube. If you want to get that richer piece. I even made sure I got kind of a Anthony and Alan in the screenshot that I wanted to use, since right, that they're kind of like the first teachers for me. Anthony and him talking about the history even told the story of being at a networking event, and that's specifically where he kind of heard about the book, picked up the book. And the book sort of captures these posters that if you haven't heard this story, right, you're about to go on the journey with us. So let's start with Du Bois, right? W.E.D. Bois. Right. So for us as a data visualization community, a founding father of data visualization. For people in sociology of any people, a founder, probably the founder of sociology. And then for African-American civil rights in the country, probably an unsung hero outside of the African-American community. I had never heard of Du Bois growing up. And as I engaged the Du Bois challenge and then interacted with people about, like more of what does he mean for other people, was kind of blown away that, right, his name is ubiquitous in houses that are just not, like I said, not how I grew up. Du Bois was born in 1868 in Massachusetts, right? So he's growing up post-emancipation, post-slavery, post-Civil War. He's in Massachusetts, so like he's growing up in the North. So on a relative scale, a little bit more tolerant, but still experiencing right? The terrible time in American history that still reverberates today. He's the first African American to get a PhD, and he got it at Harvard University. He's considered the founder of sociology for his work in Philadelphia. He did a where, like, post-slavery, what were some of the migration patterns, especially of folks that were living in Georgia at time of emancipation, and he specifically was documenting the migration and move to Philadelphia. When he did found sociology, right, he went back to Georgia, right? He founded it in Atlanta University specifically so that he was at the hub of the search that he wanted to do. We already kind of told, in case someone started late, his name is pronounced Du Bois. I think it was Anthony Starks that said in one of the previous presentations, he hand wrote in a letter he sent to a friend, my name is pronounced Du Bois. So the date of his story of, you know, his legacy is centered around the 1900 Paris World's Fair. Thomas Callaway was a prominent African-American media, like newspaper media figure at the time. Callaway and Du Bois knew each other from school. Thomas Callaway and Booker T. Washington, they asked Du Bois if he would do something of a sociological study like he did for Philadelphia, if he would do that representing Black people at the Paris World Fair. So they figured out a way to secure the $15,000, which I'm assuming, right, in today's money is absurd. They secured it fairly quick. And this whole thing happened in 4 months. So specifically for the Paris World Fair, right? So this is I think this is like a what do you want to call it? Like an artist rendering of like what the Paris World Fair would be. Throughout the year that they actually had the fair going on in Paris, it's estimated as about 50 million people that actually came to Paris to go to the fair. This is, and I know this is what do you call this? Controversial thing to say to Chicago. It is listed in my notes as the first Ferris wheel. I know we can debate that later with Navy Pier. Probably it's the first Ferris wheel like in Europe, and then the first Ferris wheel in the United States. It's the first place where they demonstrated escalators, right? Moving sidewalks, kind of like those airports where it's kind of shuttling you down, the sidewalk. First time Art Nouveau was shown to the world. And it was the first time anyone demonstrated the possibility of syncing the audio with movies. So it essentially was a fair really celebrating the promise of the future, right, with innovations. I'm not sure if you all are going to be able to see my cursor, right? So a lot of the fair was over here kind of lined up with the Eiffel Tower, but the part that actually clung to the river as it came around the bend, this was the section that was actually known as I had a phrase for it. It's like the Road of Nations. All right, my font's too small. So anyway, yeah, it was sort of like if a nation wanted to have their own booth and sort of like demonstrate themselves, that was where they were set up along the river. And so that's exactly what they got the funds for, was to actually have this booth, right? So this is actually a black and white photograph to represent, right, the Black nation of people in the United States, right? And Du Bois led the exhibit. So at least just looking at this picture, right, you've got pictures of prominent African American leaders. Right, there's lists of patents, right? Patents that Black people owned at the time. There's books that were written, right? Kind of these various assets to really sort of demonstrate, right? Anything that you've heard about us from our brethren in the United States. We want to tell our own story, right? We want to tell the truth. We want to tell it honestly, right? And we want to represent directly to folks of other countries. Right, an honest representation. What gets captured in the book is, and I can't remember the exact number of posters, but it's somewhere around like 80 to 100 posters of data visualizations to describe Black America in around 1895 is when the data was actually sourced. Like I'll actually show some posters here in a minute, but I wanted to finish off sort of the actual what do you call it, like the World's Fair. So they won multiple awards. Let's see, the multiple prizes, including an exhibit grand prize for the overall exhibit, and Du Bois himself individually won a medal for the work. Oh yeah, here we go, 60 posters. I'll go through the three sort of themes, or sort of the way the posters cluster together. But the other one, and I can't remember if it was Anthony or if it was Jason, there's a comment on on this stack. So there's like a stack of some of the posters right here. There's a footnote at the bottom of the very first poster that actually reads, for further statistics, raise this frame. And many folks argue that is the first data visualization interactivity that has ever taken place, right? There's definitely been people have done data visualization before Du Bois, but yeah, that might be the first, like, click here to see more. Okay, so I'm going to move into some of the posters. I did not alter any of the language on the posters, and definitely some of the language is appropriate for the 1900s. It not appropriate for today's language, and certainly not me as a Caucasian representing. So I will continue to use Black people, Black Americans, but yeah, just sort of like a trigger warning of, right, there will be, right, the authentic original posters as I represent them. I grabbed from the folks that were teaching the original classes, right? So here's some of the pictures of the students. Actually, I learned from Anthony's latest one. So Du Bois actually did his own door-to-door research. There was like a quick comment there that it might have actually been research paid for of, can you get me some negative statistical evidence to tell a negative story? And right, obviously he got real evidence and real information and told the proper positive story about post-emancipation. The members here on the side with the debate team and women from Atlanta University, a combination of them were actually running the statistics and also hand making the posters. The posters on large poster size sheets of paper, and they're all hand drawn, and they're all hand painted, I believe, with watercolor. So there's three large themes to the posters. Oh, sorry, I'm trying to get the zoom out of the way. And it's not going to go away. Okay. Anyway, right, there's three large themes. Actually, fortunately, it's in my notes, so I don't have to look at the title. Right, there's We Are Here. So there's a lot of maps in the We Are Here themes. This is who we are, and this is how far we've come. So I'm pretty sure this is the right, kind of a We Are Here. And some of these have been used in the challenge in the past, and some of them they'll be in this year's challenge as well. So you have a map representing, you know, as a snapshot as of kind of like that 1895 timeframe from collecting the data. Right, where was the distribution of Black Americans at that time? Sort of like a, you know, per square mile, right, you know, less than one, right, in some of these northern states, right, this is the beginning of the migration, right, but the saturation, like as a great example, Illinois and Chicago, to sort of like a great African-American Black history city, especially with like blues and jazz that's here. But 1895, right, hasn't saturated nearly as much as the city exists today. But you can actually see relative to, say, like, you know, Georgia, Alabama, right, the migration has started, and to some extent that's why he was doing that study of Philadelphia. The other places, and so there's this chart, and this is great when the Tableau folks try to do this chart, because there is no chart that does a, can you do a bar chart that's swirls it together? But it's a chart that's trying to say, you know, concentration of Black people that are living like in heavily populated areas, that's the green section, moderate populated areas, right, the blue and the yellow, and then red being like, live in the country or smaller villages, right, and that makes up the vast majority. So sort of that effect of, how big can the vast majority be illustrated. These two are probably some of my favorites, just for me imagining the audience of Europeans. Right. So, and this is the right, this is who we are, right? Let me tell you the truth about our people boldly. On the left is demonstrating the size of the Black population at that time. Right. So they took the size of the United States, right, shaded it black. But the size of the other countries are actually designed to be proportional to the size of Black America, not the entire United States, but specifically, right, the community Du Bois is trying to represent. Oh, wow.
So it looks like Kevin paused. And I think Kevin Wee, you're on mute if you're talking.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Tech
That's
difficulties with both Kevins at the same time.
I know. Let's see if let's give him a couple of minutes. He just need to find his laptop, find his battery, and
Yes.
we will see whether he joins. But at the same time, I'm gonna put Kevin Ford's social media, the Du Bois Challenge, and the Data Visualization Society that sponsored the challenge in the chat so that y'all could take a look at it. Meanwhile, Ashley, why don't you text him?
Yes. I'm actually chatting with Ashley Delarm, and she said that he's plugging in now, so he should be back soon.
Okay, cool.
But yes, thank you for sharing this, Kevin.
You are very welcome. So I know that Kevin Ford is very active in the Data Visualization Society Slack channel. And if you go to the website, you can join the Slack channel with a lot of data visualization enthusiasts. And you can find a channel that fits your need. We are in the location-Chicago channel, but you can also take a look at other channels as well. I think Kevin Ford is back. Hello. Welcome to the civilization.
Apologies for not plugging in the laptop. The charger was literally sitting right next to it. So, okay. I got it back. You guys can hear me. You can see the screen.
Yes, you're good.
Thank you. Hopefully there was some good beer commercials or something to make a little bit of money. Okay. So, I will start this whole one over. I even just said it to these guys as I swore and the whole thing crashed. This is probably my favorite slide of like the entire storytelling, because of like the forcefulness of the statement to the audience, which in my mind, that's part of why I love data visualization so much, right? So on the left, right, it's a visual representation of how big is Black America at that time, right? So the United States is drawn, as a size, right, proportional to other countries. So you have people coming to Paris looking at this chart, and if they're from Australia, right, there is visually, without really, getting too punchy, the Black America is bigger than Australia, right? Black America is a bigger nation of people than Switzerland. Black America, bigger than Germany at the time, right? Think about mind-blowing this. Like, what did Germany do 10, 15 years later, right? Bigger than Norway, right? Norway's up here, 2 million people. Bigger than Sweden. Bigger than Norway plus Sweden, right? That boldly saying, you need to think of us as a nation of people, just like you think of all these other countries in Europe as a nation of people. Today we would say, like, what's the biggest indicator of education? Maybe we would say it was like high school scores or college graduation rates. Back in 1900, that indicator was literacy rates. right? So they actually, Du Bois and the team collected, right, what was the literacy rate for Black America, and then looked it up. What's the literacy rate for other countries? So, yes, there's countries like Romania, maybe Russia that have a higher literacy rate. We're on par with Hungary, right? And that back then that was like a kingdom with a king, right? We're on par with Hungary, better than Italy, right? Better than Ireland, better than France, right? Better than Sweden, right? We're more educated than half of the countries that are actually visiting the World's Fair, right? A very bold statement of this is who we are, right? If you're hearing a story from somebody else, you're not hearing the right story. This is our story. And then the last one, right? How far have we come? I think this one on the right, this one on the left, probably is the one that is the most famous because of its starkness, right? It's what is the proportion of Black America that is free as you actually go from near the founding of the country in 1790, right? You go through all the decades, slavery through the Civil War, right? Then there's the emancipation, and then it moves to a point with freedom, but that line does not drop to zero instantly. And for someone like me, growing up in the United States, right? I did not grow up in Black America, right? The Juneteenth story, didn't find out until I was in my late 30s, right? But so really kind of boldly showing, right, the proportion and the struggle, and then sort of like the results, right? It's one of the most recognizable, iconic paintings that they put together. Going back to the literacy rate, I apologize, it's a little bit fuzzy, but I'm pretty sure, right, the literacy rate is trying to show that same, right, from the time, before the Civil War, emancipation, just as things have gone on, right, that the literacy rate is going up, and it's going up exponentially, right? It's right, like I said, it's beating countries in Europe. Actually, I'll finish with this as we're talking about the posters. 6 posters out of 80 does not do it justice. I highly recommend this book. Every year I talk about this story like in a hallway at Discover, and people are like, they've got it like shipping from Amazon just from, just telling the story and sort of like this moment that's there. So yeah, I highly recommend the book to see the rest of the posters. But now as we get into the challenge mode, and this is where, it is not a Tableau event, right? It is very much a tool agnostic. I'm even wearing like Nightingale branding, right? To really get it out to a broader group. So it could be Tableau. Definitely some of the founding, leadership team came to it from Tableau. I will show you some examples of folks that are really outside of kind of that corporate, GUI interface for it. But yes, the Du Bois Challenge 2024. You can look up the hashtag right now. They're trying to be as multiple location as possible. So LinkedIn has definitely been most of mine. They're on Twitter, probably a lot of the chatters on Twitter. I'm just really, the X era hasn't been good for me. So moved out to Instagram. So I think they're trying to do a little bit more there. Mastodon. And then the last one is on the Data Viz Society Slack. So I'll at the end of this, I'll actually bump over, not to the Slack channel, but I'll at least show you the Data Viz Society and how to get a free membership. So you can go in the Slack channel. But yes, so once a week, right, the leadership team, Anthony, Alan, right, those folks, once a week they will actually pick one of the posters. They've already picked what they're going to be, so you can kind of look ahead. But yeah, on the Monday you will see, right, kind of like a go. This week is week 5, right, on Monday. It's a stacked bar chart, right? Right. I won't go into the specifics of the bar, right? I want you to experience it. But yes, there's look for the post with the Du Bois Challenge, looking at this stacked bar chart that's in its place. Right, it's got a few more weeks that are left, right? We're about halfway. You will definitely see people. I jumped on late, so I did the first few weeks, so I'm kind of blasting them all at once. Feel free to do the same, right? Kind of get a little bit caught up in that space. But yeah, we're in the middle of the 5th week. 5 weeks ago. Definitely pick your favorite channel for posting. Put the hashtag that's up there. So I picked the ones that I've enjoyed so far. So the first one, Eleanor, and I don't know if that's a mispronunciation. I did the Americanized pronunciation for sure. This is actually from the DataViz Society Slack channel. So I'm going to plug this like 15 times. Everybody get comfortable. So the Slack channel's definitely got a really vibrant group that's in there. I forgot what tool she started using, but she is now in a blend of Python using pandas, and then finishes it off in Canva, right? So this is not Tableau. And I believe this is week 3 that she did, right, with one of the bar charts. So yeah, so once again, doesn't have to be a Tableau event. Sam Epley from, heavy hitter in the Tableau community. We've even had him here on the Chicago Tug. I think it was last year, sometime. Right. This was, I think this was like it even says it's the second one, right? Exercise number 2. And I was saying I wouldn't talk about the actual posters, but this one, definitely check this one out. Because this is probably the most wonderful way I've ever seen anybody do I don't have a 0 axis. Right, they're zoomed in on the same, what percentage that are enslaved, percentage that are free. But instead of having that 0 axis, it literally looks like it's torn, like they tore off the rest of the piece. And then I've called Sam out with the fact that he didn't have that angle on the last bar to be appropriate for Juneteenth and the story that's there. But he's in Tableau. There's limitations. Kamal is done. I think he's done all of them. I think I did get this one off of LinkedIn. Right, he even did sort of a black on black motif with this week's Du Bois challenge element that's there. If you actually go and see him posting on LinkedIn, I think he went one step further. I didn't bring it all up, but he went and looked because this one's actually talking about sort of like mix a race. I think they call it like amalgamation of Black America at the time. I think he actually went to go look for data from like a African American historical museum to get more data, and actually made more charts to actually give more contextual information. And that is definitely something that happens with the Du Bois Challenge. People are not just inspired to make the data that was the data of the 1900s. They will either make a modern version. Anthony's definitely done modern versions. I have them in the appendix if anybody wants to see them. Some people actually have stories about emancipation in their own countries, and those were some of the best ones from last year. Vivian, I can't remember what tool she uses. It's definitely not Tableau. I think she was in R Shiny or R Studio. Yeah, it wasn't one of this year's posters, but there's definitely some of this data and some of the other posters, and she wanted to tackle something that she had never done before. So she tackled this. So yeah, we found her on the LinkedIn channel. And then last, you can't close this off with talking about Chimdi. Chimdi did, and I'll give multiple sort of kudos to the right people here. First, Chimdi's one of the leadership crew. So if you go watch their video from this year, right, Data Plus Diversity, he even talks about his journey with this dashboard. Two, right, he did almost like the gallery, right? He wasn't just recreating the posters. He was almost trying to create the same experience of being at the exhibit. I mean, he doesn't have any French iconography to go with it, but more of an art exhibit kind of an experience as you actually go from poster to poster and experience to experience. If I not only did this win a ton of awards at a Tableau conference, right, he had like 44,000 views just on Tableau Public alone. So, I mean, if you summed up everything with all the social media, this was a fairly big sort of splash that's there. And outside of Du Bois Challenge, he makes wonderful content. Actually, before I stop for questions, let me do a little bit more in terms of how can I participate. So let me get this Zoom stuff out of the way. Hi, Zoom. So first one up is, right, if you do the hashtag Du Bois Challenge, you will definitely see a link that gets you to Anthony Stark's GitHub page. And this ends up being like, you know, like the main announcement of what's going on. So that, right, that's where I literally grabbed that poster, right? Kind of talks a little bit of that's in this place. Even says, right, use your favorite tool, have a good time. Definitely tag with a hashtag. Let me see if I got all of the channels. So we got X, LinkedIn, Slack, Instagram, Mastodon. Okay. Oh, and viz.social. Okay. So yeah, some of the places that some of the data viz folks have moved on. For Data Viz Society specifically, right, they're actually doing some prizes. I believe all of this is just in that Slack channel. So that's to some extent, if you're actually interested in the prize section, right, you can win, right, one of the more valuable memberships. There's definitely a free one, so you don't have to pay for the membership. You can win one of the magazines. A few of us subscribe to the magazine. So there's a little bit more that's in that space. And then, like I said, right, there's a little bit of like the, you know, which posters are being done for which weeks. Right, we're kind of here in the challenge number 5, right, the March 4th space. Right, if you come in here and you click on it, you will get to Anthony Stark's folder. That's actually both the data. It's usually just the text file, the old poster, maybe even some other kind of context. So let me do this one just so you can guys see it. Yep. So there's the original poster as a JPEG and just a simple CSV with the numbers for this week. Stacked bar chart, 3 wedges. It's probably just 3 numbers and probably the labels that go along with it. So easy way to get into it, but help to celebrate the story and get the message out there. Right, the other one I kind of said, right, the data of diversity. I'm not going to throw all these links in there. I'm not as good as Kevin. We kind of looking everything up. Of course. Thank you so much. Totally. But yeah, that's this year's data plus diversity, right? A simple Google search. You will find one of the years they all have that same name, right? Data plus diversity. So you'll get that right combinations from the different years. But this is the one from this year, and I will once again kind of think that as one of my sources to retell the story. Last is Data Visualization Society. So all one word, datavisualizationsociety.org. If you're aiming for the Slack channel, or even not the Slack channel, right? You just want to get into a broader community and not just the I'm not talking to the Tableau user group side of the house, right? You want to get a little bit broader than just Tableau. Data Viz Society, Nightingale. It's more about the what we create, not the how we create it. And so it gets a little deeper, gets a little bit more spiritual, very vibrant community. They have their own kind of contest that's going on now for, you know, visualize the survey data that's going on. But yeah, there's just a memberships. You do general memberships and you scroll down. The last one is it's free membership. So you get access to the Slack channel. You get on the newsletter that comes out pretty much once a week. The Data Viz challenge that they're doing. And then they do have a jobs board. I don't go to the jobs board itself all that often, just there's wonderful channels in Slack for job opportunities. There's one channel for the Du Bois challenge. There's a channel for us, right? There's definitely like, you know, the Chicago community. And then there's channels for different tools. So D3 folks, right? There's kind of a channel for D3 questions, Tableau folks. Some of the people leaving Twitter wanted to try out whether or not using that space. So it is a good place to get into like a broader data viz community. And now I will ask questions or answer questions.
Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to either jump off mute or throw them in the chat and I'll read them off.
I'll do this because I'll tease Anthony's good work. Any questions?
Nothing so far. Lots of thank yous and praises. And then Anthony has shared a lot of really good resources in here as well. So thank you, Anthony.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, then I will end with giving
one just came through.
Perfect. Go ahead.
What was your best recent learning?
I think well, I took 2 things away from watching the video that was this year's video. When the leaders sat around kind of like a campfire, panel type of a thing, they said, what do they get out of it, or what do they hope comes from the challenge? And I apologize, I forgot who actually said it, but there was a general agreement of, right, sort of like keep the story growing, right? Keep sending the message out, kind of keep getting in that space. So that definitely inspired me of, because I was feeling like, I'm kind of doing this a third year in a row, or, is it getting a little bit worn? I was sort of reinvigorated. No, it's a wonderful story to tell. So my ask to all of you is, right, go tell this story to other people, even non-data viz people. I told this story to our senior vice president of credit management. She's the chief risk officer, and she was blown away by this story. She's one of those like hallway conversations where like she ordered the book right there while I was standing there talking to her. It's not just a data viz story. This is one of those like unsung, untold American stories that needs to get out there more.
Yes, I agree. Great answer. It looks like we don't have any other questions unless anyone wants to jump off mute and interrupt me. But if not, Kevin, thank you so much for your presentation. That was great. I'm definitely hoping, to see some names from our meeting out there involved in the challenge. And again, thank you, Anthony, for sharing all those resources and just all the work you've done with the challenge and spreading the word. So thank you. So that's our last presentation, but we're gonna stick around for some networking. So I really do, invite you all, if you have the time, to stick around, just kind of chat. If you guys have any questions or anything like that, we're more than happy to chit chat about whatever you guys want, really. Yeah, and we can stop the recording for the networking.
Oh, yeah. Someone in the room had the really good idea. Turn off the recording for the chit chat so no one's on a hot mic. I'm usually the mouth that needs to not be on a hot mic. So
Yeah.
how do I stop? There we go.